First of all, yesterday, we did see some selling come into the market. We made a new high in the morning. Probably saw me do a quick fade up here, pretty much at the high print of the day, just to see if we would come back in and test prior day support. Kind of blew through that, came all the way back down through the prior day's low, then found a little bit of a bounce. Looking at it over the last few days, still seems like 258.25, 258.30 support, 259, 259.30 resistance. The action, where the big action was, it was an IWM, and we covered this, I thought, set up pretty well in the morning meeting yesterday. We had the wild action over the last couple of weeks, which we've said normally leads to some downside. But what was great about what happened after the wild action was we had 3 days of tight consolidation, which I like to refer to as compression before expression, and it broke to the downside. And so, probably about a 35 basis point range for 3 days. The first move was down. It took out the support from the prior 3 days, and this is our first close below 148 since September 28th. It's a big deal. So it brings in lower prices into play. Certainly, fading this up move as it got closer to 147.5 was the right thing to do. You have to be pretty quick about it because it didn't quite get there. Got to like 40 cents. So sellers are in control. Buyers need to prove that they can retake control, or we need to get more oversold before you commit to the long side. And I think we can spot that pretty quickly. I'll show you one more time. Was here, we gapped up on this day, on this heavy volume day. We broke out to new highs on September 27th. And the kind of the low of that day is 145.25-ish. So I think for downside, it's probably somewhere from like 145.70 to 144.80, somewhere in this area right here. Kind of where it opened that day, gap fill. If you can get that, if you see that, that would be the spot where I'd be interested in committing to the long side, buying some out of the money calls, getting long the ETFs, etc. All right, still got plenty of stuff going on. The big one was Snap in the after hours. Awful numbers. Was gapping down to, it's actually, now I'm looking at this, reminds me a little bit of when Twitter bottomed a couple of years ago. Twitter had bottomed in the after hours at a 13. People on the chart look at it, see 14, and then a few quarters later, it gapped down again, but it made a higher low. It's the same case here. Last night, I think it bottomed a little bit below $12. It's still a higher low. And then the news came out that Tencent bought more shares. So it popped in like 6 this morning, like up to here or something. It's already come all the way back down to 13.5. I nibbled right here at this pivot low in the pre-market when I got in. Like around 13.20, 13.15, and then flipped it back to the short side. But this is kind of what we're looking at here, like 13 to 13.20 support. I think 14 is now resistance. The move that it made at 6 in the morning when there weren't as many people here to short into that, I think it's extremely unlikely that you'll see something like that again as the market opens. It's basically people going to be battling it out. What does this mean? Can Tencent take them over? I already saw an analyst say, well, they don't have voting rights, so it won't change things. They're not going to. It really comes down to, do you think the Trump White House would block a Chinese internet company from buying Snap? And I don't think they would, but the question is, would Snap allow themselves to be sold? And that's really going to be people battling it back and forth. I think there's people on both sides of that argument, and so we're likely to see. If it does get above 14, I would say it would only go a little bit above. Does it go below 13? Yeah, I could see it flushing below 13. I don't see it. Anything's possible, but I don't see it really retesting the 12 support from after hours because there is this kind of good piece of news factored in now. So the way I'm looking at it is initially I'm looking to play it at between $13 and $14. As I said, after I bought it here, I flipped it back to the short side. Just to keep an eye on it. I don't think this spike is, I doubt this spike is real right here. I don't think it's really traded above 60 cents since it bottomed here. But on the open, if it gets to 13.80 to 14, this is where I'd be more aggressive on the short side. and just play the range until I see something, a pattern develop intraday. It's going to be plenty of volume, not that much risk. Try not to overtrade it, so it could trade 50 to 100 million shares. The next one is Take-Two, TTWO. This is extremely interesting to me in terms of a sell the news situation. Now, it's become a pure momentum stock. I just want you to take a quick look at the daily. So Take-Two was like a $10, $15 stock for years, $10 stock for years. And then it, I guess, I'm not that familiar with the whole gaming situation. I haven't played games in a long time, but obviously they're doing well in that sector. And it's gone vertical now, and you're getting a gap up. And this is a perfect sell the news. In other words, it's a momentum stock. The EPS numbers suck, probably because they're reinvesting to grow revenue, and the market is rewarding them for growing revenue. But if you just look at it in terms of, where was it in January? It was a $50 stock. It had already doubled coming into these numbers, and now it's gapping up again another 10+%. I think you can get a reset there. So let's take a look at the 30-minute. So here's initial reaction, 116, hold into like 114.5, 115. Now this morning's at 120. A failure at 120 could get you 116 pretty easily. And, then it becomes, all right, is it going to be one of these that comes in here and then it ranges for the rest of the day, or it comes in here, tries to go up, takes this out, and they put the kibosh on, and it comes back down to kind of the prior few days range. So, but I certainly think the risk reward on the short side on a failure up here is really good. Even if it doesn't have like a real sell-off back down to here, even if it just comes into kind of the after-hours support area right here. It's going to be riskier. What is it going to do in terms of volume? I think that I'm just looking at it over this year, between 5 and 10 million shares probably. So it should be pretty liquid. I don't think you'll need to risk more than 50 cents in it, except for in the first few minutes. And so, risking 50 cents to try to capture a $2 to $3 move, that works. It could work real well. Just trade it with less size, but I like it. In terms of trading on the long side, we covered the short side. Quickly fails at 120, comes in close to 116. That would be the first kind of trade I would look at to see, does it hold 116 and pop back up? And then after that is, say it does get crushed right on the open, does it base? And from a base, does it start to curl back to the upside? Those are the two most obvious potential long side plays. The next one is SYNA, which has a really high short interest. Here's the daily. So short's doing well on this one. I mean, it looks like it was rough going for a little bit going, it was getting crushed, and these guys do component parts. I guess every time people like lose their minds over something going on with Apple. And now though, it just seems like the sellers are really in complete control. I don't remember the exact fundamental reason. I think maybe Apple started using less of their tools in the iPhone or something like that. But things have stabilized for them now. The numbers were okay, and it's gapping up above 40. Question really becomes, is this news enough for them to try to push the next? What did I put for resistance? 40, 41. It looks like 42 also is actually even bigger than 41. It's more like 41.25, 41.30. So yeah, 41.30 actually, rather than 41 is what I would use, just based on it sold off here from 42.5, held below 41.30, came back up, held 41.30, came back up, held 41.30. It's a big level. So a spike above 41 right on the open to 41.30, and then you see it below 41. You can play it on the short side. If it consolidates all morning above 40, 50-ish, you can play it for move back up to this high here on August 30th, which was 42.5. I think anything above that would be a stretch, even with the high short interest. AAOI. So this one a lot already happened here. So they had warned. So they had already warned, and that caused this gap down here. And then it sold all the way down to 37.5, 38. The numbers came out. People thought they were okay. and it popped back up here, where it broke down after the warning, and failed and came down. So now we have to look on the long side at this area here. So here's the initial reaction to about 46, quickly came back down to 42. This morning seems like it's going to test support in the last couple of days. I think it's worth a shot on the long side there against 37 probably. See if it can pop back up to maybe 39.40. And we'll see after that. It trades 2.5 million shares, so this could easily do 5 to 10 million shares, so it should be pretty liquid. Let us move on to VRX. So VRX, I thought it was kind of meh. I made some money in it because right on the open, I think I mentioned in the morning meeting that if it popped up to like around 14.30, that was interesting to me. And that's the main reason why I made money, was it popped up there, then it came back down to pre-market support. I covered some. I think what happened was then it came back up here again and I shorted a lot, and then I covered again. Maybe it was this time. But anyway, by the end of the day, the bid kept on stepping up, and I was finally stopped out, actually, about 14.20. That's right. So I shorted here on the open, right on the open at 14.25. And then had my stop, covered some, had my stop above 14.20. So when it kept on popping up, I was shorting again and again and just kind of covering into the support areas. Then finally stopped out right at the end of the day for what I had left. So I was kind of mad. But the one thing is, the buyers did step up, held here all morning, then stepped up a little bit, stepped up. So right into I guess in the afternoon, people were buying it. So how would I look at it right today? Well, first of all, I'd have alerts down at 13.80 and 13.90 to see if it supports there again, and alerts at 14.20. If it gets above 14.20 and then 14.30, you could pop 30 to 50 cents from there. But I wouldn't be married to a move for it to go to 15 unless it consolidated above 14.5. The next one is Weight Watchers. This was maybe my lowest stress trade of the day. Didn't get long in on the open here above 50. Did offer it out at 54 and never even challenged 54.5. Came in $2-3, covered almost all of it. Came back up, didn't short it on the double top here. Wasn't really watching it. I'm sure people were thinking it was going to break through, but it actually, not only did it break back to the downside, it made a lower low. So the sellers really took control in the afternoon on this one. And it begs the question, is it going to come back down to 47.48? See how bad this looks? So if you look at it in the daily, see this is just a big wick. You don't want to see that if you're long. So really what it comes down to is, does it get below $50? And if it does, holds below there, you play it down to 48, 48.5. Unless it comes all the way back down into this consolidation. But I think it's not extremely bearish, the intraday pattern from yesterday, but it's bearish. Breaking above 50 and then selling off $3. If it gets below 50 today, very easily could come off $1.5, $2. On the long side, if it's above 51.5, that's kind of what interests me with buyers, in terms of buyers being in control. Trip, I tried to play for a bounce a couple times, didn't work. I lost track of it a little bit. I thought in my mind, worst case scenario for it, based on kind of what the numbers looked like in the downtrend, was 28 to 30. It actually closed below 30 yesterday, so I think it's starting to get into worst case scenario. Or maybe it closed right at 30. It actually closed above 30. So yeah, remember, so it bottomed here and it held above 32, so it's trying to play the bounce, and it just took out the low, and kind of that was it. Came back up and tested the prior low and failed here. So anybody who was short or looking on the short side, it behaved the way they wanted to. It takes out the morning low, comes back up, fails at the morning low, and just kept this trend the rest of the day and closed at the low. So for today, you might get some bottom fishers come in. The way you look at it is the bottom fishers come in, what happens kind of right at 31. Comes up to 31 and starts to hold above there, you could play it for move back up to kind of this failure area here from middle of the day yesterday, 32, 32.50. I would, it's a trade. I wouldn't be staying long this stock unless it actually got up to this area here and then broke above 32.50. Then you could start to think about it a recent end move. But we're not really seeing, based on day one, we're not seeing a lot of evidence that that's going to happen. So I will look for putting a low right on the open though on some sort of flush below $30, and then quickly see if it gets back above, let's say 30.30. That would be how I would look at that. Quickly, I'll check back in with Snap. Okay, so Snap is kind of working its way back down to that 30.20 support. So this is what I'll watch right on the open, 30.15 to 30.20. If it flushes through there, I want to see if it catches a bid right around 13 or a little bit below there. Again, same thing. The concept that I just described to you in Trip, it's applicable in most setups where something comes into a support area. We saw it in Apple. We made a really nice play in Apple on the flush 2 days ago, below 172. You want to see it flush below, and then you want to see it just get back above the key level. That gets some people to start buying. You know where to hit out against because you already have the low, and you play for a bounce. So it works on both the short and the long side. It's a good little trick that traders use to kind of define their risk well, and then also see that buyers or sellers step in at key resistance or support areas. As always, be patient and good luck.
Hope you enjoyed that video. You can actually watch that video if you're subscribed to our Trader 90 before the market even opens. What stocks are in play? What levels in those stocks are important? And how we might go about attacking that stock. That's Steve Spencer, 20-year veteran trader, laying it out there every morning before the market even opens. A really, really powerful tool to start your session off on the right foot. So right now we're offering a trial that you can take advantage of to access this meeting and other meetings throughout the day. We have a meeting at 11 a.m. Eastern where you can sit down with Mike Bellafiore and listen to him talk about what's going on during the morning session, what stocks were in play, what the best trade opportunities were, as well as maybe some things that we're looking at heading into the afternoon session. So I really encourage you to take advantage of that trial.